Running this familiar query shows us that if you look on the location ID field, you see the majority of the employees work in location 1. How about we get a count of the location ID and how many employees work there? Let's type group by location ID. Now, since this field is listed in the group by, it must also be listed in the select field, as well as we're going to do a count. And we see location 1 has 7 employees. Now, we want to see the locations that have more than 2 employees. You might be tempted to type where count is greater than 2, but the where clause does not support aggregated fields. So instead of using a where, let's do the exact same thing below the group by and use the word having. And you can filter your aggregated results. Okay, check out this process. We see we have 4 locations, but what this query does not tell us is how many people work in each of those locations. So what we're going to do is use a full outer join on the employee table. Now, let's alias the location table as loc and alias the employee table as emp and join those on loc.locationID equals emp.locationID. Let's run this. Well, we get a lot of fields. Let's narrow this down to just state and emp.firstname. And run this. Now we see the vast majority of our employees work in Washington. How many? Well, let's group by the state, and let's aggregate count the first name. Run this query. We see we have 9 in the state of Washington, 3 in Massachusetts, none in Illinois, and Nowhereland, or Knoll, seems to have 1 employee, John Marshbank. Using what you've learned, let's find all of the states that have more than 2 people. Put having, count, emp, first name, greater than 2. And we get Massachusetts and Washington in our result set. This query will find all of the grant amounts and the employee that found them. If an employee has found multiple grants, they will be listed multiple times, 1 for each grant they have found. So let's run this. Now the first amount is $4,700, which is found by David Lonning. We also have some more David Lonning one. Here's an $18,000 one and a $25,000 one. Now if you do the math, this goes over $48,000. There's only one other employee who has over $40,000, and that's Terry O'Hare. Not because Terry has found a lot of grants. Terry found one big one. So what we want to do is we want to aggregate these results. Now we're going to do a double grouping. We're going to group by first name and last name, because we only want to sum the amount. So let's put sum amount in the select list. Run it, and now each employee is listed once because it's grouped on their first and last name, and their grant total is listed right next to their name. So let's use the having to find all of the sums that are over $40,000. And notice we get only 2. Now, David Lonning has more than $40,000, and so does Terry. But David Lonning does not have an individual grant over $40,000. You saw that we can't use where with aggregated fields. Well, you can use a where clause in an aggregated query, just not on an aggregated field. Here's what I mean. If we said where amount greater than $40,000, and we completely left off this having, what result do we get? We only see Terry O'Hare, because the where is looking for all individual records over $40,000. This query will show us a list of all customers, whether they've ever purchased from us or not. And it looks like we have 775 of them. How many of them ordered from us at least once in the year 2006? Well, there's no date field in the customer list because they could order multiple times. That information is in the sales invoice table. So we're going to alias the customer table as CU, the invoice table as SV, and join it on customer ID. Well, we've got a lot more results because several customers have bought many times. But at least we can start narrowing down the date fields. Let's say where order date is between 1/1/2006 and 1/1/2007. And let's run this. All right, we filter it down to having 438 records left. Okay. How many of those records are unique to the same customer? I see of the 438 records, Helen is listed 3 times. What if I want her to be listed only once? Well, let's do this. Distinct, CU, dot, and then asterisk, all the customer fields. It looks like we have 333 customers. Distinct and group by are very powerful querying tools. Sometimes you use one, sometimes you use the other. There is a time where you may want to use both. For example, let's start off by looking at this view called vSales. And what this gives us is every single product that's ever been ordered. Customer 597 on January 8th, 2006 ordered 5 of product 7s. And we have 6,960 records total. Well, we want to measure how widespread and impactful certain products are. Now, at first glance, we have product A that sold 8 times and product B that sold 8 times. You would think you've impacted the same number of people, but maybe that's not true. Perhaps product A has sold 8 times, but once to one person, and another person came back and bought it 7 times. You've only impacted 2 people. Product B may have been sold 8 times to 8 different people. So we want to see each product and how many different customers have tried that product out or purchased it 1 or more times. So let's just view the product ID and the customer ID. Now let's group on the product ID. And let's get a count of the customer ID and run it. Now, when we look at product 23, it looks like it's only been ordered once. Product 69, well, that's been ordered 60 times. But was that ordered by 60 different customers? Or maybe 59 customers, because one customer came back and bought it twice. So this group by just tells us the number of different times we've seen a customer. If this customer is repeated, it's going to count it each time it sees a value. Unless you put the distinct keyword inside of the aggregate function. Now watch this. Product 69 has been ordered 60 times by 59 distinct different customers. Time for Lab 4.2, Skill Check 1. Using the Sales Invoice table, write a query which groups on customer ID and counts the number of orders, also called invoices, that each customer has made. Return only the records where the customer ID has ordered more than 7 times. Show the aggregated field as order count. When you're done, your screen should resemble the figure you see here. Skill Check 2. Join the Sales Invoice Detail and the Current Products tables showing just the Product ID and Invoice ID fields. Change the query to group on Product ID and count the Invoice ID field. Return only records where the Product ID has been ordered more than 200 times. When you're done, your screen should resemble the figure you see here.